Midjourney has officially entered the race for tools that can create consistent visual elements with its long-awaited Omni reference feature. This new tool replaces the older sref system and allows for the creation of not just consistent characters, but also objects like cars, animals, and other non-humanoid elements. It also supports personalizations, stylizations, and even mood boards. But how well does it actually perform? Let's find out. First, make sure you've selected Model 7 in Settings. For some of my prompts, I'll be using RAW mode, and I'll have personalization turned off for all of them. To use Omni reference, simply drag an image into the Omni reference box. You're not limited to Midjourney generated images, you can use any image, including ones in your uploads or on your computer. In this case, I'll use a photo of a woman that I previously used with the sref tool. Now, I'll keep the same settings and prompt, but this time, I'm using Omni reference with Model 7 to see how it compares. You'll see a setting for Omni strength or weight, which accepts values from 0 to 1000. The default is set to 100. Midjourney recommends keeping it under 400 in most cases. For now, I'll leave it at the default value. The results are pretty solid. Some images resemble the reference more than others, especially the top two, which I think are closer in appearance. However, there are noticeable differences in her hairstyle and clothing. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the results from sref and Omni. Both performed well, but in this case, Omni did a better job of capturing the woman's facial features, while sref did a better job with the hairstyle. Let's try increasing the reference strength to see if we can get results that more closely match the original image. Now, this is a definite improvement. There's more consistency in her face and hair. All the images share a stronger resemblance to the reference, and the increased strength also brings out the bokeh-style background more clearly. One other thing I noticed, the sref results had more variety in the woman's poses and camera angles. In contrast, Omni mostly kept her facing forward and holding the mug. That suggests Omni might be more rigid in interpreting the pose, along with other visual elements. Since it's designed to reference everything in the image, not just facial features, it seems to lock in the entire composition more tightly. I noticed an even stronger resemblance when I let Midjourney's creativity take over by disabling Style Raw. I also tried our girl doing some runway modeling. I gave a detailed description of her outfit and even changed her hairstyle. The results turned out pretty well. The first 3 images resembled her more closely than the last one. Next, I tested a different image, a zoomed-out shot of a woman, and ran into some issues. Using the default reference strength of 100 and a detailed prompt, the results were disappointing. I tried increasing the strength to 400, but that didn't help. Then I added the same physical description I used to create the original reference image and adjusted the aspect ratio. This produced slightly better results. The second and last images somewhat resembled her, but still not convincingly. I even pushed the strength to the max at 1000, and again, only 2 images came close. In a final attempt, I lowered the weight to 25, but that didn't improve things either. It might have been the prompt, perhaps it was too detailed, too far from the style of the reference image, or maybe the lack of a zoomed-in face in the reference made it harder for Midjourney to lock onto her likeness. So, I tried a simpler prompt, her sitting on a couch, drinking tea. While not all 4 images were perfect matches, the overall consistency improved. Then I reused the physical description from the original reference, including her clothing, and the results got even better. This time, the resemblance was stronger, not just in her face, but also in her pose. That could be because the prompt matched the reference image's sitting position. Her outfit also stayed consistent, though it was simple. Just a white t-shirt and blue jeans, which are easy to replicate. According to Midjourney, if you want consistent clothing, a reference strength around 400 is recommended, but you might also need to include clothing details in the prompt for best results. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to test this particular image with sref, so I can't compare the 2 tools in this case. So far, it seems that close-up, front-facing shots work best, which makes sense. Now, let's test object referencing. I created an image of a thermal mug using ChatGPT's image tool, then removed the background to see if Midjourney could handle transparent background images as references. After that, I added the text AI concoction to the mug. Using the default reference strength, I generated a product mockup of the mug sitting on a kitchen counter. Out of the 4 results, only the last 2 vaguely resembled the original mug, but the text was either missing or incomplete. I increased the strength to 400, and while more of the text appeared, the mug itself still didn't match, except in the 3rd image. Maxing the strength out to 1000 was a total miss. None of the mugs looked like the reference. So, I dropped the strength back to 400 and this time added a prompt to specifically place the text on the mug. That helped. Images 1 and 3 were the most successful. We all know, Midjourney struggles with rendering text, so I wasn't expecting perfect results there, but the consistency of the mug design in those two images was solid. This mug was a relatively simple object, but I wondered how Midjourney would handle something more complex, like an alien blaster gun. I thought it'd be fun to test it in a dynamic scene. A fierce woman armed with the blaster, squaring off against a xenomorph. I set the Omni strength to 300. And wow! The results were great! While none of the weapons looked exactly like the reference, the third image came close. It wasn't an exact replica, but it captured some really impressive details, like the two large circles and that sleek aerodynamic shape. I liked it so much that I created a video using Kling's new 2.0 master model, complete with sound. If you haven't seen my earlier tutorial about this new feature, be sure to check it out. I also created one using Minimax. Uh-oh, and we all know how that ends. Alright, back to Midjourney. This time, I wanted to test whether I could apply a specific outfit to different models while maintaining consistency, something similar to Kling's try-on feature. I had previously created a design of a Victorian corset dress with brass gears and a high-low hemline, and I thought it would look great on various women. So I used the dress image as the reference and kept the prompt simple. A beautiful woman wearing a Victorian corset dress with brass gears and a high-low hemline. I set the reference strength to 400 and added a few descriptive hints about the dress, hoping to get solid results on the first try. The results were great. Most of the dresses closely resembled the reference, with only minor changes like some of the gears. The undergarment differs, likely because it wasn't included in the reference image. But what if I want a specific model wearing that exact dress? Currently, you can't use multiple images as Omni references, so at first glance it seems impossible. However, Midjourney notes that if a reference image contains multiple objects, the system may be able to replicate them together in a new image, though it's still experimental. Naturally, I had to try it. I combined the image of the woman with the dress image using Canva. Just create a new file, upload both images, place them side by side, and export the result as a PNG. I then used this composite image as the reference, applied the same prompt and reference strength, and generated new images. Here are the results. All 4 images ended up with a side-by-side of the woman and the dress, just as I expected. While there's a slight resemblance to the references overall, it's not very strong, though the woman in the second image comes closest to matching the original. To help Midjourney better understand the details, I uploaded the images to ChatGPT and asked it to describe them and generate a Midjourney prompt based on the visuals. I then edited the prompt using those details and regenerated the images. This approach definitely improved the consistency of both the woman and the dress, and this time, only one image showed them side by side. I also managed to get some great images of her wearing the dress while enjoying coffee at a cafe. As a side note, I could have used Midjourney's Describe tool by dragging the image onto the page and dropping it into the Describe box, but in this case, I found ChatGPT's descriptions to be more detailed and useful. Before wrapping up this video, I wanted to test how Omni reference interacts with style references, the stylize setting, and the new EXP parameter. For this test, I used an image of a majestic dragon as the reference and paired it with a style reference that I thought looked visually striking. I kept the Omni weight at its default value. Here are the results, and honestly, the style reference didn't have much influence on the output. So, I increased the style weight, and that did make a difference. The images began to reflect more of the intended style, but it came at the cost of some consistency in the dragon's design. Next, I combined Omni reference with the stylize and the new EXP parameter. If you're not familiar with EXP, it's an experimental feature meant to enhance the aesthetic quality of your images. It works similarly to stylize and can be used alongside it. The parameter ranges from 0 to 100 and affects the level of detail, visual flair, and artistic dynamism in your generations. Midjourney suggests trying values like 5, 10, 25, 50, or 100. Still using the majestic dragon as the subject, I found that mid to high Omni strength values tend to overpower both the stylize and XP parameters, regardless of how high you set them. For example, in these stylized tests, there's virtually no noticeable difference between the outputs. The same applies to the EXP parameter. Using the default Omni strength, all the generations look nearly identical, no matter what EXP value I used. To let stylize or EXP have a stronger visual impact, you'll likely need to lower the Omni weight. In this example, I reduced the Omni strength to 25 and maxed out stylize, and only then did I start to see a more distinct stylistic influence. That's it for this first look at the new consistency tool. Just a heads up before I go, Omni reference isn't available in the editor yet. Also, fast mode is now supported in version 7, and the quality parameter has been updated for this version as well. If you found this helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be exploring more of what this feature can do in upcoming videos, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching.